Okay, hi guys. So today I'm doing an overview on this set of rules, Honors of War, War Game Rules for the 7 Years' War by Keith Flint, published by Osprey. It was originally published 2015. I found this at the game store. I had never seen this in the Osprey Blue Book series before, and I thought I'd get it. At first, I was kind of not sure if I should get it because, to be honest, sometimes get rule sets for this period and to some extent the Napoleonic period, they kind of feel a little too generic. But I'm really glad I got this after reading through it. The author packs a lot in here, surprisingly, for an Osprey Blue Book. I mean, usually these games are pretty kind of breezy, casual. You know, you can play it in 2 to 3 hours in an afternoon type of thing. But I have to say, these are really detailed, and also the rules writing is very clear. The prose is easy to follow, all that. So that's really good. And I also like that the author did include national differences. Sometimes like I said, sometimes in rules for the kind of horse and musket period, especially the 18th century, in rules writing, there's a tendency to just abstract that, all the armies were basically the same, or they all pretty much fought the same. But the author here does give some national differences. He says you don't have to use them, but I think it's a really good touch. Includes all of the main players in the war, so Prussia, of course, then Austria, then France, Britain, Russia, and also includes Sweden and Saxony as well, so kind of some of the more minor nations, interestingly. And also, if you're interested in doing imaginations, which is, I know, a lot of people like to do for this period, there's rules for that too. He has some stuff. So it's each infantry unit represents a battalion, and it's a brigade level game in terms of how you organize your army, and there are also some really nice pictures of 28 millimeter figures in here. It is written with 28 millimeter figures in mind, but and I'll show it in a minute. The author gave really good details on how to modify it for other scales, and well, why don't we look at that now? Just while I'm discussing it. So not only did he include Flint include using smaller figures, and he gives pretty lengthy rules instructions on how to do that, but he also has full measurements for everything in different scales, so you don't have to guess or do math. He already did it for you, so that's a really nice touch, instead of just saying, half it if it's 15 millimeter or something. And those are the scenarios. We'll talk about those in a minute. And this is the QRS, but you play it as like I said, a brigade level game. So you have brigades of either infantry or cavalry, and then you can mix in light infantry or artillery into your infantry brigades, but infantry and cavalry have to be separate. However, he does note that in the 7 Years' War, brigades were not like a permanent unit. It was more of like an ad hoc formation based on whatever the situation was. So there's that. And then you roll, all your activation is done by brigade. So for a blue book game, it's pretty, it uses a pretty significant amount of units. And so it's a pretty substantial game in terms of the number of miniatures, I think. But it's, I think you can play some decently sized battles. These are the rules for command. One thing and these are the terrain rules. One thing I liked in these rules is there's a lot of opportunity for reaction, reacting fire and charges and things like that, which I appreciate in a set of rules. And you also roll initiative during every phase, basically. So that's another nice thing. It's not a strict, alternating activation system. Here we have the movement. I think the diagrams are nicely laid out, very clear. And like I said, the prose is very easy to follow, very, to the point, not much, not as complex writing as other sets of rules, especially for this period. We have the firing phase. Firing, move, fire, charge, the kind of standard cycle in a game. Rules, then these are the rules for the artillery, things like that. I think if I can play this at some point, I'll do more in depth on the actual kind of rules mechanics, but it's pretty, nothing super groundbreaking, but I appreciate that for this kind of Osprey Blue Book. It's fairly detailed, good cycle of play, I think, and like I said, there's plenty of opportunity for reaction, things like that. We also have weather and seasons, which is a nice touch. Again, not something you would expect in kind of a Osprey Blue Book, but it's here, and I like that a lot. One of those things you can use or not, in your game. I kind of like having the weather, just because weather's important in military history a lot of the time. This, I think, is I'll focus on the national differences, because I think this is a really good feature of this game. Like I said, it gives a lot more character, I think, to the army, to the armies involved, I should say. So first we have the Allies, talks about Prussia, and there are actually two Prussian kind of lists, or not army lists exactly, but two, because we have the early war period, and then Flint included a later war, so after 1760 list to represent, as he writes, how the Prussians took a lot of casualties, and and especially lost a lot of officers, so they didn't perform as well later in the war. Then we have the Austrians, of course, with Her Majesty, led by Maria Theresa, Her Majesty Maria Theresa, kind of surprisingly, to me at least, that the Austrians are treated fairly, I should say. They're not seen as completely inept, but they do have some problems. Maybe not as effective in certain areas as the Prussians. And then we have these are German troops in British service, obviously, because the House of Hanover in Britain was German, as many of you know, I'm sure. Then we have the Russians. For me, I'm interested in this because it might be useful to use the Russian list to do some of the Russo-Turkish wars from the 18th century with these rules, maybe. So that would be that might be fun. And then we have France back here. And he also kind of he defends France a bit. Despite getting bad press in many books on the Seven Years' War, there was a pattern of improvement in the French army as the war progressed, particularly when it came under the control of Duc de Broglie during 1760. Overall, it held its own against its main opponent, Ferdinand of Brunswick's allied army in the Western Theater. Although primarily as a result of superiority in numbers, it seems to have remained tactically inferior to Brunswick's troops throughout the war, particularly in its standard infantry drill, and its officers at all levels tended to lack professionalism. But, it's, like I said, I appreciate that the author really tried to give each army its own character, and try to do the research on that. And then the other, we have Saxony, one of the German states, and then there are Saxons in service of others. There's also Sweden, who fought in Pomerania. I actually didn't know the Swedes were involved in the 7 Years' War until I was reading through this. And then we have the German states of the Holy Roman Empire, and then finally talking. There's a few paragraphs on doing imaginations, if you would like to play that, and then there is a point system if you want that. I don't really care for points in historical games, but it's there if you need it. And then, like I covered there, this is the information on adjusting the scale. So, I think just for an overview, I'll wrap it up there. Like I said, I'm really impressed by this set of rules, especially for the page count, because I think, what is this? This is let's see, 64 pages, including the QRS. So, really nice. And last thing I'll say is, there are some scenarios in the back, but the first three are fictional scenarios. But I think the maps are well laid out. And then finally, there is a real scenario, the Battle of Lobositz in 1756, which was the first major battle of the 7 Years' War. The channel Hanger Flying, he's done some videos talking about units that were at this battle. So check his stuff out. He's really, it's really interesting. So like I said, I'm really impressed by this set of rules for, a relatively small package. I think it gives a pretty detailed, battle system. I wouldn't use these for maybe really in-depth historical gaming, meaning, I wouldn't, it's kind of medium complexity, I would say, in terms of the rules, but I would probably think this is a good set of rules for someone like me who is kind of new to the 7 Years' War period, especially because, like I keep saying, the armies are given rules for their national characteristics, which is nice. And also, it is nice to play a set of rules that, you can probably run through this in, an evening, like a 3-hour game or something with so many units. And also, like in the scenarios, Flint makes some comments about, when you're doing historic battles, you can compress down the number of units into, one unit really represents 3 from the real battle. So, that's what he writes in the Lobositz section. So there's stuff like that. All right. And, so I hope you found this interesting. I like I said, I had no idea that this was in the Blue Book series. It's one of the earlier ones. It's number 11. So, I guess maybe that's why. But yeah, interesting set of rules. I think I will definitely want to give this a try when I can get some miniatures for it for the period. Play it in 15 millimeter probably. And yeah, well, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.